There's not a debate happening right now between pro-lifers and pro-abortionists regarding data that was recently released. This data showed that those who are going out of state from states that have very effective anti-abortion laws, that those numbers are dropping. But the number of people that are just ordering pills via telehealth, abortion pills, those numbers are going up. Now, on the pro-life side, they're saying this is good news because it means that they're not making a spectacle of it. There's I don't even know what their argument is. I don't see this as good news at all. So, just to be clear, as a vehement pro-lifer, the fact that the abortion numbers overall are not going down means that we're not winning this fight at all. Sorry if you're one of those out there saying, "Oh, Roe v. Wade was overturned. Victory, mission accomplished." Not even close. Okay, I mean, until abortions actually slow down and eventually stop, then there is no victory. The fact that fewer people are going to abortion clinics, and we cheer every time a Planned Parenthood is closed down, but the total number of abortions, the total number of children being murdered in the womb is not going down. So I don't see any victory in this at all. Whereas the pro-abortionists, they are claiming victory, and I would argue they are correct. They are correct that, so fewer people are going out of state, but they're still killing babies. Are we going to cheer because they're killing babies without traveling? I just don't see it. We have an article over at discern.tv titled "Abortion Travel Plummets in Banned States While Telehealth Pills Surge," and it's satanic either way. It doesn't matter how they're killing the babies, whether they burn them on the altar of Moloch or they pop a pill and the baby's dead. Either way, the baby's dead. So again, to me, that distinction doesn't fit with a true pro-life perspective. But let's talk about the data, and then I'll get into the satanic aspect of it. New 2025 data shows women from the 13 states with near total abortion bans traveled out of state for abortions at a rate 16% lower than the year before. Okay, good news, right? Well, no. Because the drop took it from roughly 74,000 travelers in 2024 down to 62,000 travelers in 25. At the same time, though, telehealth abortions using mailed pills jumped 26% inside those same banned states, climbing from 72,000 to 91,000. In other words, the total abortions in those states actually went up. So no, if you're a pro-lifer, this isn't good news just because people aren't hopping on a plane. Nationwide, the total number of clinician-provided abortions remained virtually unchanged at just over 1.126 million. But here's the thing, and we got to be crystal clear about this. The challenge with quote-unquote clinician-provided abortions is that not all of them get recorded, especially if they are done through mail order. Some people want to keep it very private. Some people, if there are radical leftist doctors out there who are willing to forego the standard protocols in order to get abortion pills in the hands of those, especially if they're in states where abortion is not allowed. These doctors are oftentimes willing to bypass standard protocols and perhaps not report it. I would argue that, as insane as it may sound to those of us who fought Roe v. Wade for years, for decades, that the overturning of Roe v. Wade did not actually slow abortions. Abortions, I believe, based upon the fact that the numbers are allegedly static between 24 and 25, tells me that chances are the actual abortion rate, the actual number of babies being murdered, whether they're reported or not, whether they're done by telehealth or flying out or whatever, that the actual number of children being murdered is going up. And we cannot ignore that. We cannot just sit back. I almost, it's pretty sad, but I almost consider the overturning of Roe v. Wade to be a tragedy if nothing else is done. I'm serious. It's a bad thing if if the conclusion was, okay, we overturn Roe v. Wade, we're sending it back to the states, now they can figure it out, and we're done here. We're mission accomplished. That's just not the case. Abortion needs to be banned completely. And I know many of you out there, whether you're moderate or even full blown conservative, you might think that's too radical. You might think, oh, we can't do that because that would, I don't know, we'd lose elections or something as a result. That it could never stand, not in this day and age. I don't care. Abortion to me is pure evil. It is satanic. It is victimizing those who have no attachment to whatever predicated the desire for them to be killed. And yes, that does include even those dangerous and ugly and crime-ridden aspects of certain types of pregnancies. I can't stress this enough. Whatever happened for a baby to be conceived is not the baby's fault. Regardless the baby had no hand in that whatsoever. God, on the other hand, did have a hand, obviously, in the creation. And you might say, but if that baby was created via evil, then would that make God evil for allowing? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that we don't know what a person's pathway is in this life, what they are supposed to do according to God's plan. I know someone, I'm not going to say her name, but she is a relatively, I would say a low level, but still a public figure who was conceived in an act of evil. By today's standards, she should have been aborted. At least the pro-abortion, pro-choice, whatever you want to call them, that crowd would say, "Oh, because of this act of evil, this fetus should be destroyed." No, I would say if you ever met this woman, you would agree that she fights the good fight. She tries her best. She does a whole lot of good work. And no, it's not based upon the circumstances of her conception. She is just a person. And I think that they are all just people, regardless of how they were conceived. Again, I'm not defending the crimes, not by any means. I'm defending the babies who were born from these crimes, or at least they should be. No baby should be aborted. So until we get to there, I'm still going to continue to fight against abortion. It is not a victory that abortions have not gone down. We need to address this issue as an issue of evil. This is good versus evil, period. We have an article, or within that article, I start off with everything that I've told you, and I was going to go do a whole bunch more talking about the debate, but I think I've made my point that the numbers, this isn't really a debate. To say, well, because they don't have to travel out of state, we're winning this battle. No, I don't think so. And the reason that I don't think so is because of the evil, the satanic nature of abortion. The second half of this article, which again you'll find over at discern.tv, is one that I'm going to allow AI Rucker to read because I think that it hits home. I think that word for word, this is exactly the message that we need to be focused on, centered around in our discussions when it comes to abortion. This isn't just about numbers. This isn't about circumstances. It's not about dates or times or whatever. It's not about whether or not somebody is using one method or another to murder a baby. It's the sheer fact that by murdering babies, we are committing evil, and we are doing this corporately as a nation, unfortunately. This isn't just a sin that falls upon the doers. This is a sin that, because of the scope and scale and severity of the crime, of the commitment of this evil, that I do believe that this is part of, and arguably one of the biggest parts of the overtaking of the States of America by forces of evil. So let's turn it over to AI Rucker, and then I will give my commentary on the other side. Abortion in any form is still murder loved by Satan himself. The shift to mailed pills does not sanitize the act, it only hides it. What happens inside a woman's body after she swallows abortion pills is the deliberate ending of a developing human life. Tiny hands forming, a heart already beating, a soul already present. Scripture draws no gentle distinction between the shedding of innocent blood in ancient temples and the chemical destruction of the unborn in modern homes. Both stand as offerings to something darker than convenience or autonomy. Throughout the Old Testament, God repeatedly condemned the sacrifice of children to false gods. In Leviticus, he warned Israel not to offer their sons and daughters to Moloch, declaring it a profaning of his holy name. The prophets thundered against the same evil in the valleys of Hinnom, where parents burned their infants alive for prosperity, fertility, or personal peace. The Lord called it detestable, an abomination that polluted the land and invited judgment. Those ancient rituals were not mere cultural quirks. They were spiritual transactions, trading innocent life for the favor of powers that hate what God creates. Today's abortion pills perform the same transaction in private. The motive may wear softer language, choice, health, timing, but the result is identical, innocent blood poured out so that adult plans can proceed uninterrupted. The packaging is clinical and the process silent, yet the spiritual reality remains unchanged. It is self-worship dressed as compassion, the elevation of personal desire above the image of God stamped on every unborn child. When the Satanic temple openly frames medication abortion as a religious ritual that affirms their tenets of bodily autonomy and rebellion against external authority, they reveal more truth than many comfortable Christians want to admit. The act aligns with the destroyer's ancient hunger for the youngest and most defenseless. Christians who shrink from this language do the cause no favor. Jesus welcomed little children and declared that harming them carried the heaviest consequences. The early church stood against both abortion and infanticide in a pagan empire that practiced both routinely. They understood that every life, from conception, bears the breath of the Creator. To call chemical abortion anything less than child sacrifice is to soften what God has named evil. It is not judgmentalism to name darkness for what it is. It is mercy that refuses to let lies stand unchallenged. The data from 2025 proves the battlefield has simply relocated. Fewer women travel, but more swallow pills at kitchen tables while the culture whispers that this is liberation. Real love confronts that whisper. It points women toward life-affirming alternatives, supports them through crisis, and never stops declaring that every unborn child is fearfully and wonderfully made. The pills may arrive by mail, but the blood still cries out. Until the chemical sacrifice ends, the spiritual cost remains. The church must speak with clarity, act with courage, and pray without ceasing for a nation that has traded the altar of Moloch for the convenience of a prescription. So true, so true. Look, I know that it is not politically expedient to promote absolute pro-lifism. I know that this makes a lot of people, including many conservatives, in also including many Christians. I know it makes a lot of them uncomfortable to say no exceptions. You know, well, what about the life of the mother? What about this, that, or the other? There, you could argue, okay, you could argue for anything. You could say heartbeat, 6 weeks. You could say 20 weeks. You could say whatever. None of it holds water, to me at least. And I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise, because I do respect that a lot of people can have a more nuanced perspective on this topic. I'm just going to tell you what I think. To me, the murder of any child is evil, no matter what. I don't see any exception to that, because again, regardless of the circumstance. Somebody could have, and keep in mind, I want to tell just a brief personal story. We were offered, it was actually recommended to us at one point to consider aborting our youngest child because he had a health condition that was devastating. Thankfully, praise God for this. We did not have a doctor that pressed, and she is still our doctor. Very very happy that we declined. She felt that she was obligated to mention it and offer it, but when we declined, she was very happy about that. And yes, that's even out here in California. I had written about this in the Federalist years ago, and it was and still is a very amazing blessing. And I usually don't talk about family or anything like that, anything personal, just it's private, right? But in this case, I think it's important to understand that this isn't something that's just an abstract concept to me. This is something that we have thought about and experienced ourselves. So, and to be clear, it's not like it's like, oh, we were torn apart between whether or not. No, no, me and my wife were just like, no. It was easiest decision we ever made. And again, we were very blessed to have a doctor who supported that decision wholeheartedly and was actually very excited about the prospects. And as a result, our beautiful, wonderful youngest child is still beautiful, wonderful, and amazing. So, with that said, yeah, it is evil to me because if you regard a conception as the point of personhood, which I do, if you regard conception as the point of creation, even though the Bible actually says that we were created even before conception, so there's that. But we have to assume that at the very least, from our limited understanding of time and creation, that we can point to the point of conception as that moment of life, when life begins for that particular person, that human being, that child. And as such, anything that is done to that person is, if that person is killed in any way, intentionally, then it is murder. And if it is murder, then it should be outlawed. And so, people will make all sorts of moral arguments, logical arguments, political arguments. I don't buy any of them. And it's not because I'm just trying to be some, whatever, unbending person for no reason. I have thought through this, prayed through it, and have come to the conclusion that life is life. Murder is murder. And therefore, if you kill an unborn child at any point, for any reason, using any method at all, then it is satanic. It is evil.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.